In our world today, I don't think we can talk enough about kindness. So I'm going to add on to what Jeremy taught us today. We speak of Rebecca, we speak of her kindness. It was not just your average run-of-the-mill kindness, but rather extraordinary kindness. When Abraham's servant encounters her at the well, she not only gives water to him, but goes the extra mile to give water to the camels. This is noted as an extraordinary act because of the nature of the work it involves. This is large amounts of water that camels would require, that Rebecca would have to carry back and forth. This was not simple work. It is also extraordinary because at the time of the action, there was nothing in it for Rebecca. She had no idea who this man was. He was a stranger to her. And there was no expectation of payment or favor returned. In our tradition, when someone does a kindness for someone else with no expectations, he or she is considered a mensch. A mensch is someone with a good, pure heart who always does kind things for everyone. Striving for menschlichkeit is an important Jewish value. We teach our children about menschlichkeit in religious school. We talk to them about gemilut chasadim, acts of loving kindness. We teach them to be nice, to share, and sometimes the opposite, don't be mean. We also consider kindness to be moral. In other words, we are concerned about knowing the difference between right and wrong, and we understand that treating people with kindness is both right and ethical, adhering to societal norms and rules of conduct. Many religions attempt to formulate a simple statement regarding moral conduct. The most well-known is the Golden Rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Or, as Hillel put it, what is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. In other words, put yourself in someone else's shoes and imagine how you would feel if you were the recipient rather than the performer of your actions. The Golden Rule is about much more than kindness. It is about empathy. When you put yourself in someone else's shoes, it is understanding how our actions impact another person. Empathy means knowing that someone else is hurting and then reaching out, helping out, and giving. Empathy is seeing someone else's situation without judgment. Empathy is doing a kindness simply because it is the right thing to do, knowing that in doing so, someone else will benefit. Kindness and empathy are always about the other and not about ourselves. Here is a beautiful story from the Talmud about empathy. Once there were two brothers who loved one another very much. The younger brother had a wife and 4 children. The older brother never married, and he lived alone. The brothers were poor farmers who each worked very hard and eked out a living on the field that their father had bequeathed equally to them. Each year at harvest time, they divided the produce. Each took his share and stacked it outside of his own house. Once, the older brother awoke in the middle of the night and he was troubled. "How unfair of me to take half the harvest," he said to himself. "My brother has a wife and children to feed. I should give my brother a larger share of the harvest." So in the middle of the night, the older brother secretly carried part of his share of the harvest to his brother's house. He placed it outside of the house, adding to what his brother already had stacked there. Meanwhile, the younger brother also awoke from sleep troubled. "All these years, I have been equally dividing the harvest work with my brother," he said to himself. "But I have been unfair. I have a wife and children to give me comfort, but he is alone. When I am old, my children will help take care of me, but he will be alone with no one to support him." So In the middle of the night, the younger brother carried part of his share of the harvest and deposited it outside of his brother's house with his brother's share of the harvest. Neither of the brothers knew what the other was doing, so each was amazed that despite his efforts to give part of his own share of the harvest to the other, his own share never seemed to be depleted. So each man continued to bring part of his share to his brother during the night, constantly increasing the amount and always being surprised that his own share never seemed to be diminished. Finally, one night, the brothers meet. Each quickly understood what the other was doing. They embraced, they kissed, and they wept in love and joy. According to my teacher, Rabbi Dr. Byron Sherwin of blessed memory, empathy is at the root of moral relations because it moves people to articulate their moral values through their deeds. It opens up a door to sharing the joys and pain of others. It helps to establish and to strengthen mutual understanding and interpersonal relationships. Empathy is a key ingredient in the most cherished of all interpersonal relationships, love. In our recent small group study about love, we learned about empathy in session 3 in our discussion about loving the stranger. We are reminded there of the words of Rabbi Harold Kushner. We are to treat aliens, widows, and orphans, and other marginal members of our society as we would want to be treated in similar circumstances. The decency of a society is measured by how it cares for its least powerful members. While we can't always fully know how a person is feeling or dealing with events in their lives, we must be able to imagine how we would want others to be there for us in our time of trouble or sadness or grief. Reaching out to those in difficult times, making sure that everyone has their physical needs met, seeing each person as B'Tselem Elohim, created in the image of God, that is our calling to kindness. Hillel asks, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? And if I am only for myself, who am I? In our world today, we cannot only be for ourselves. We live in a world in which we truly need one another for support, for friendship, for learning, and for love. So what can we do to cultivate a culture of kindness? Kindness is learned behavior. We have to teach children how to play with other children. We have to teach teens the courage to be kind when maybe their peers are choosing negative behaviors. We have to learn as adults that just because we are having a bad day, we can't take it out on someone else. Kindness is something we have to choose. Random acts of kindness are no longer sufficient. Just as we make it a point to actively express our gratitude every day, we must do the same thing with kind behavior. We have to set a goal of being kind every day. Not only should we practice being kind simply as we go on our way in the world, but we should choose deliberate acts of kindness. There are specific ways we can do this. I searched the internet and found the Kindness Challenge. Here are some of their suggestions on ways to be more kind. Compliment someone every day. Help a young person. Help a new person in your community. Assist someone with a task without being asked. Step up for someone in need. Say please and thank you. Thank a soldier or a first responder for their service. Remind your family how much you love them. Give someone a gift just because. Donate blood or platelets. Speak out against an injustice. Forgive someone. I'm sure that you all can think of many more acts of kindness to practice. There is no limit to the good we can do for each other. Every kind act is a step towards greater empathy and greater action. Every kind act, no matter how big or small, makes a difference in someone's life. Every kind act brings greater love into the world. As Ellen DeGeneres says at the end of every show, be kind to one another, and may we prove that kindness is the path to peace.